everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Quite Lovely podcast. I am your host, Riz. Last episode, we spoke with a dear friend of mine who gave us his perspective on what it's like to lose someone that you really loved and cared about as your first time being away at college and what that pressure is like. This episode, we're talking to the third person in our household, another roommate of mine, and a Gemini man this time. Very interesting perspectives here, I would say, considering, Geminis and Sagittarius, which is my sign, are supposed to be sister signs. We definitely banter like little kids, but he's going to give us some really cool views on what the gay community is like in Columbus and how that plays into how he forms relationships himself. I hope you guys enjoy, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you today?
I'm swell.
Alright.
I'm your Gemini man.
You are my
The
Gemini
one and only.
man. Now,
Okay.
we're getting to the good stuff.
Oh my.
You ready? Hold on to your seats here. When you think about your experiences with love, what do you think they're based off of? Like, what do you think it comes from? Family examples, other relationships you've had, friendships you've had, other friends in relationships?
That's a good question, actually. Like, I guess I should give a little bit of, like, a backstory real fast.
Yeah.
I am a, gay male, so I don't really have, like, the best background here regarding, like, what I base my relationships off of. I know personally, in my own personal life, I don't have the best experiences with them because I know I grew up with a mother and father who fought quite often. So, not gonna lie, I grew up accustomed to thinking that a lot of fighting was normal sometimes. And then I also have, I think both of my aunts are currently divorced, and then I only have one uncle who's currently married at this time. And I know my brother just recently got married, but as a kid, I really didn't have the best examples. Because when I was younger, especially as a child, I really didn't see a lot of what was going on. At the time, I thought, oh gosh, my parents are normal and everything. This is what a normal relationship is.
Yeah.
Until I got older and I realized that, wow, fighting all the time and, stuff is not the best thing for a growing child to hear, especially when you're, like, hitting middle school. In high school, you go, wow, I should not be hearing this. So for the longest time, I actually did think that was a normal aspect of relationships, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. How do you think that influenced the way that you interact with people now, generally speaking?
I know growing up and seeing that, it's made me a lot more cautious around, the friends and individuals I do meet in my life. Because I know how, as a kid, I hated and as a young adult, I hated hearing and seeing my parents fight all the time and have dumb arguments about absolutely minuscule and trivial stuff.
Yeah.
And I made it the mission, when I got older, I'm like, I'm just going to learn to actually effectively communicate more with the people around me, because I'm like, I don't want the relationships with the people close to me to be built on and just being filled with arguments and everything, because that's not real friendship.
Yeah.
It's not what that is. You want to be able to have, like, actual good conversations, voicing, hey, you did something that makes me feel uncomfortable, or you did something that made me angry. We're going to talk about it, what it is. Okay, I apologize. I'm going to hear out and explain to me why it made you feel uncomfortable, and I won't do it again, stuff like that.
In another one of my recent interviews, I had a guest that said something very similar. They used that connection that they had, or whatever examples that they had seen in their family before, as a motivation to be a better communicator in the long run. And I feel like that's really cool, because you don't really come across a lot of people who are self-aware enough to be like, here's how I'm going to change the pattern that I've been shown my entire life.
Some people choose to stay in that pattern,
yeah,
I guess.
exactly, and stay in that cycle, and that's how you end up with.
And I think that's a thing that's happening a lot in this generation now. It's like we do have a lot of people that are like, awakening to the fact that, hey, a lot of the things our parents did were not healthy. Yeah. So I'm going to put in the effort to be like, hey, I want to be an effective communicator in a relationship. I want to be able to, we should be able to have an adequate talk about stuff that makes, if something you did upset me, I want to voice what it was. And you should be able to hear me and why that is,
So with love interests, do you think that you're just as effective as a communicator? Is it easy for you to be able to talk about that kind of vulnerable topic?
I'm not gonna lie. I haven't actually had a lot of, relationships, at least here, because personally, I'm just now getting out onto my own, so to speak. I'm just getting out from underneath my parents, So I'm finally exploring all that, but I haven't had the best luck when it comes to talking, because being gay in Columbus in this area is really hard. It's often really difficult to find people that want to have a basic conversation. Oftentimes people really focus on just hooking up, and a lot of times people do enter these conversations with you and they're not honest and upfront, and a lot of times they'll hear you out in what you're saying, but what they only want, is a sexual partner. It's just like, well, if that's the case, why didn't you just say that,
Yeah. And how do you think that's skewed your view on love, if it has at all?
I'm going to be honest. I have a difficult relationship with love and everything. It's one of those situations where, like, I've never romantically felt it, because I've never gotten that close to it. I've had times where, like, I love my best friends and everything. Like, I love my roommates because they mean the absolute world to me, but I've never, have adequately felt, like, the reciprocation from, like, another guy that's just like, hey, I love you. I want to hear about your day. I went through a traumatic, breakup situation earlier this year where I really thought this guy liked me. We never mentioned the term love, but, typically when the guy shows me affection or something, I fall pretty hard really fast. I'm like, I don't get this. I feel like I need to snatch it up really fast. I missed a lot of red flags looking back, but, I didn't realize when it blew up in my face, I was like, oh my God.
Why do you think you fall quickly?
Because I never really have had that opportunity like a lot of other kids did, A train of thought regarding that.
We were talking about your view on love.
Oh yeah, my traumatic breakup this year. So basically, and I've had two other romantic-ish encounters since I was 19, well, maybe one other. And typically in that regard, it's kind of especially at the age I'm about to turn 24, so I'm kind of wary on the whole love aspect now. I'm trying to find a way I'm trying to get myself to appreciate it again. Thankfully, with my roommates talking about it all the time, I'm like, okay, let me actually hear them, and discuss what these emotions are, because since I'm a person that's never experienced it in so long, I effectively just shut that part of me off.
So then when someone acknowledges that area of you, you tend to want to go head first.
Exactly. It's an especially wild thing here, and a lot of times you'll hear a lot of I'm not sure if any of your classmates are gay or anything, or if they have gay friends, but oftentimes you'll probably hear them say Columbus is just a very shitty town altogether, because it's the same with a lot of guys here, unless you fit a certain persona or stereotype or something. You'll often get people that are very shallow in that regard, and they won't really hear you out. It kind of turns you off of everything in the moment, you mentioned, in the moment someone shows you that, because that's what's happened to me. I've effectively turned those emotions off since I've never felt that actual emotion and everything. But since I've never felt that emotion towards anyone, and they've never really effectively showed that to me, the moment someone shows me even an inkling of it, I immediately just go, they like me, they want to be with me. And the moment I see them, I'm just like even if it's like I've just started online dating, so I'm just like, the moment someone matches with me, sometimes I go, oh my God, we're probably like gonna get married and everything. I'm like, shit, I'm already like imagining.
You're like, where's the ring?
Exactly. I'm like, I'm already imagining our lives together, and like they don't even say hi. They just only match with you. And I have severe social anxiety, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I just am so terrified to say the first thing to someone. And I'm just like...
That's scary. I mean, even that is a very small way of putting yourself out there, but it feels so big in the moment. Like,
oh, yeah.
Because you're like, I'm taking a chance with this person that I have never seen in person before. I've only seen pictures of them, but I'm attracted to them.
Exactly.
And now I have to put myself out there.
Exactly. And it's so hard because, like, it's so, like, different than what our parents and like people before like the internet had to deal with.
Could you imagine our parents on Tinder?
God, it would be ridiculous. I'm like, why? Like, imagining my parents matching on Tinder would be terrifying. I'm like, how would you guys even match now? Like, and it's so funny because now people, like, if you hit someone up, people can just straight up ignore you. Like, they can look at your profile, go, oh, I don't want to talk to this person, ignore the message you sent them, and you're just like,
yeah.
Well, what did I do, you know?
Exactly. You start to relate it to, like, maybe a self-worth situation. And first of all, a disclaimer for everyone out there, please do not let dating apps define your self-worth, because they're simply only looking at the glimpse of one single part of you that probably isn't even accurate in the first place. And, like, it's just not real, okay? So there's no need to tie your self-worth to that at all.
It is very true. I've come to find that out by the few minutes I've been on them. I'm like, literally all it does, it's all monetization, and they want your data. It's like, okay, you get a few free flicks, but the main purpose is like, after that, they're like, oh, you want unlimited swipes? Yeah. Pay $20 a month. Or, you know... Like, why would you do that? Isn't the main purpose of you supposed to, like, help me find someone? Or, like, the main feature, like, I know Bumble's like, you want to see people who matched you? Mm-hmm. Pay $20 a month or something. I'm like, well, isn't that the main purpose of your app? Yeah. To see who liked me so I can determine, like, if I like them back based off their profiles?
My whole gripe with it, honestly, is, like, how on earth am I supposed to tell if me and this person are instantly clicking if I can't meet them, because the chances are they're probably halfway around the world somewhere, which is, like, cool because you can meet them online, but it's like
you can't have that in-person connection.
You can't tell if you click. And I feel like, yes, there are people, and I know people personally who have met others online and are, you know, they're getting married and things like that, but I just don't know. Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like to feel that connection, like, without first seeing them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, like, yeah, I get you completely.
I don't know, like, because it's that first glance when you meet someone, like, just on a chance or on a whim, that feeling is so magical, and to have to create the spark yourself online it just feels interesting. I just don't know if I would be able to be equipped for it. I've definitely tried it before, but
it's not for you.
It's not for me. I don't think it's for me.
Honestly,
at all.
It's so fascinating. That's one part I envy about our parents sometimes. It's like, our parents have, even though they may not have the best relationships or something or whatever, they always talk about that maybe the very first moment that they met each other. Like, my dad always mentions to, like, not always mentions, he's mentioned it like twice or three times since I've been alive, maybe. Yeah. It's like, you know, I remember seeing, like, your mom in a club. My dad was in the military, and he came to a club and my mom was there, and he saw her, and, like, bam, it was just like they had that connection or something.
And if they were swiping on Tinder with each other, the chances are they might not have made that connection. Or maybe they would have made it a lot sooner. And you simply just don't know.
And that's one thing that I think this pandemic has messed up with a lot of people. I remember specifically having conversations in, like, late 2019 when so many people were tired of online dating. They're like, hey, I want to try organically dating. The fact that people have to say organically date is so crazy to me, because I'm like, that's an aspect that our generation had to completely create just so, like, hey, I want to meet, basically say, like, hey, I want to meet a person in real life, as opposed to meeting behind the screen or having someone swipe up, slide in your DMs with some, like, cliche, like, fucking joke, like, oh my gosh, like, you're the only 10 I see or something. I'm not sure if people still say that, but...
And aside from that, can you imagine what it would be like right now if we still had the same ability to court a person? Do you ever hear your parents talk about, like...
Courting?
Yeah.
Especially
like,
in the like southern, like, cotillions?
Yeah. Honestly, I would love to be courted.
Honestly, same.
It's something like a little dream.
But it would have been, like, the same thing almost. You had to have, like, this arrangement almost, because you all had to go to this little thing with the purpose of, like, finding someone.
Yeah.
And, like...
I mean, aside from the, like, sexist and social
of
constraints
course.
of it, but...
Basically, you have to marry... Listen here, little lady. We have to keep the money in our family, so you have to marry... You have to find this really rich guy, in order to hang out with him or whatever. And I think... But honestly, I would have loved to have seen that, though.
I know.
Like, I have this little bit of, like...
I feel like there's definitely there's, like, a modernized version of courting... But it kind of still starts with social media. Like, you like a few pictures, they like a few pictures.
It's like, and you do all of this before even saying hi to someone. Maybe a very rare person would be bold and be like, "Hey, I like you." But it mainly starts with, I don't know, you're scrolling like on Twitter or something, and like you see like someone's profile pic come up, and you go, "Wow, that person's gorgeous." You click their profile. You start clicking their tweets, like, you know, liking their tweets and stuff. And then they get triggered by that. And they're like, maybe, wow, this person has a hot profile too. So then they click on your profile and they start clicking.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's the same. And then you keep doing that. And then one of you would be like, so, like, what's the... hey.
Move?
Exactly. And it starts off with some hey or something like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, and unfortunate times is like now... As opposed to back in the day when people do that type of stuff, it's like you don't know what the real purpose behind it is. They're just like, do they really just want to basically fuck or something? Or do they actually want to talk to someone, you know? So it's a hard thing to, like, judge in that aspect, you know?
Has it been easy for you to be able to tell? Do you think it's, in the gay community here, it's a little bit more straightforward, or are people...
Oh, no. It's so terrible.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to be a downer about it. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. It's your experience.
Yeah, but it's just, especially here in Columbus, I remember low-key came out when I was in high school. Mm-hmm. I came up in the age of, like, 2014. I came out, so it was technically, like, okay to be gay in high school. Like, no one really made a big deal out of it.
Technically.
Yeah. The fact I have to say technically, like, even though, like, a few year difference is still, like, crazy, but I remember, and I went to a very, like, low-key prestigious high school here. So, thinking of it in that regard, it's just, like, I remember I came out then, and I didn't really catch a lot of grief. I still caught some. And then you grow up, and I still was in this very sheltered, like, very Christian-based faith environment where I still tried to repress a lot of it. And I was like, well, maybe this is a choice, you know. And I remember I turned 19, and I went, well, fuck it, you know. I'm just going to explore all this. Yeah. You know, left the church and everything to try to find my sexuality and, like, discover my sexuality and everything. And I remember trying to talk to guys and remember just how superficial it was. And it's especially worse considering we're here, like, near a military base. Like, I'm a military kid, so I already understand some of it. But even now, it's still, like, people still see you as, like, in sort of experiment or a test thing. They'll only hit you. Like, if you say hi, they see you as, like, oh, like, maybe I can use them as for a hookup or something as opposed to, like, an actual human being. So for a good minute, you feel like you're being used for a lot of people, especially in a community that's a very family first, like, Christian based city where people push your family values where you're like, oh, well, and it's so funny when you grow up as a early 20 something and you see this, but you get hit on by the people that hate your very existence, and you just go, and they see you as, like, oh, something to experiment on. And I'm just like, you have a whole wife and kids, and you're hitting me up. And I'm just like, and it's so crazy, you know? Yeah. So growing up here, it's become like you get this tilted kind of view of it. And it's so funny because one of the main experiences I see online, it's very common in a lot of southern cities, in, like, a lot of southern cities, just, like, a lot of these kids, you know, look at bigger towns like Atlanta or New Orleans or, like, Miami. And, you know, they go like, wow, this is what their first experience being, like, you know, gay, so to speak, is going to these towns, you know, and being themselves. I remember I went to Pride in Atlanta in 2017.
That was an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was crazy. I remember thinking, wow, I'm coming from Columbus to just being to, like, one of the largest prides in the world. And I did it with all about my parents knowing. I lied to them and basically said that I was like, oh, I'm going to visit my friend's lake in their house in freaking somewhere, some city I made up. And I remember talking and going and seeing it. And I remember meeting this gay couple in our hotel that we stayed at. And they had a kid, and they brought their kid with them. And he marched in it. And I remember seeing it, how amazing it was, seeing, like, all these corporations and everything, like, supported all of these gay couples from around, like, the world coming here. And it's just, like, you feel like you're in, like, as much as the many problems the gay community has at large, it's like you go to events like that and they make you realize I'm a part of something, you know?
You really are a community.
Exactly. It's like we're all bound together by, like, these shared events. We all had people try to tell us, like, hey, what you're doing is a mistake, it's a choice. I'm like, trust me, hun, if this is not a choice, I would not choose like men, bruh. I really wouldn't. Like, dating guys is hard, but it's like you realize all that, and then you come back to, like, towns like Columbus, or if you're a small town gay like me, you know, you realize there's no sense of community. Gays often, and this has been my experience, it might not be everyone, you know, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know my personal experience has been, it's been a very argumentative based environment where they see you as competition, you know. They'll go like, oh my gosh, well, I'm not going to talk to you, I'm going to spread rumors about you.
Yeah. Does that shift your mindset at all? Were you ever in a place where you tried to think that way too, or have you always stayed true to let's just seek out this genuine connection kind of thing?
I would definitely say, like, my mindset has shifted quite a lot since I was 19 regarding it. Like, I remember having people get mad at me for no reason, other gays and stuff, for just rumors or things that made no sense. I'm like, why are we having this much infighting? Like, you know, I remember going to the tap and me and my friends being randomly stared at by this other group of people. And I was like, what do we do? And I thought about it real hard. I went, oh, that's why, basically, you know. Yeah. And, you know, it's a little bit, it's hard, you know, but I will say, yeah, it's kind of shifted my perspective on it. But my mind at this moment, especially as I'm getting a little bit older, you know, I'm about to turn 24. And in gay years, that basically means, like, I'm approaching my 60s.
In gay years. Please explain gay years for all the listeners here.
All right. So, quick thing. There is this thing in the gay community where it's called gay years. And legitimately, I believe it's real. I follow a lot of Instagram meme accounts, and it's, like, very much a thing. It's like, when you first come out as a younger gay, it's like the quintessential existence, the perfect year of being gay evidently is when you're 18 through, like, 21. That's, like, the pinnacle, like, right there. But after 21, a lot of older guys, and for some reason it's like a lot of mid to late 20-year-olds, and especially older individuals, that go, well, you're too old. You go, and then it starts to harp on you, go like, wow, you know, I'm 22. And then at that age, believe it or not, you really do go through, like, a lot of the trauma you went through does make you a little bit older. It's not the same for everyone. I know, based off my own personal experiences, I remember even talking about it. It was like I did mentally age a lot, and it's not something I'm happy about. You know, it's like, wow, I'm over here having the mentality of, like, a 50-year-old when it comes to things.
Yeah, I feel like you have to mature a little bit older, or a little bit faster than
exactly.
Everybody else.
And so then you, like, hit the age of 22, and then you start having people tell you, like, oh, you know, you're too old or something. And you're like, what? You're, like, 26. I'm 22. What's the big deal here? Like, and they go, you're too old, and it makes you question a lot of things. Like, that's creepy, but also, like, what's wrong with being 20? So you literally do age, and then, like, there's this whole time scale from, like I mentioned, there's 18 to 21, which is being, like, your pinnacle and your prime. 22 through your mid-20s, it's like, those are, like, your middle-aged gay years, and then technically you die when you're 30.
Oh my gosh, that's so morbid.
It's like, wow.
Are you supposed to just stop finding love at 30?
Yeah, exactly. Gay? Like, if you don't have a boyfriend by then, or married, or anything, it's kind of like you're dead in the water. That's it. No one's ever going to like you. People younger than you are going to think you're a creep. People older than you think, wow, you're too old. What happened to you? What did you do?
How do you fix that? How does the gay community fix that?
It's something that gets brought up so many times, but it's one of those things that gets brought up in a joking manner. a lot of people mention that, hey, this is something, that we should talk about. Like, why is it that, and a lot of times the ones that are the ones that say, like, oh, you're too old for me, or a lot of people who are in their 30s through like 50s, and they basically see like that prime age of 18 to 20, and they fetishize those years because they go, wow, those age where like the college age years where guys are experimenting or stuff like that. And it's like a disturbing little point, but then you go, a lot of times a lot of people ignore it, but it's one of those things where it is mentioned, but it's not like adequately talked about,
All right. Well, if you had one piece of advice for any of the gay community out there falling in love, what would you say?
Know your self-worth. It sounds cliche as fuck. Know your self-worth. Never take shit from a guy because they simply tell you, well, you're getting older, no one's ever going to love you. No, you are an amazing person. You will find someone someday, Ignore those people who spout their own insecurities on you, because one of the most important things is like you have to love yourself. And I know it's hard for people to love themselves, even if it's just liking yourself. That's one major step, and that's a major self journey for like younger gays alone. So never let a guy just tell you all of the sweet nothings that they want to tell you because they know you don't hear it a lot. It's something I dealt with, and something I wish someone would have told me. Like, don't just fall for a guy because he just goes, oh well, because he like said good morning to you one time and has never said it again, or like wants to hang out with you in the daytime once, or only wants to come around you and not tell anyone, stuff like that. Find someone, know your self-worth. Find you someone that wants to hang out with you, be with you all the time,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Yes. Goodbye. It was fantastic to be on here. I am an avid fan of this podcast, actually. She is a very talented young lady.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you very much.
She's a very smart cookie. Very glad to know her.
Thank you. Well, this has been our favorite Gemini man, ladies and gays.